Those of you who read Vatican news could read on the 15th of this month that the main guest of our program, His Excellency Archbishop Fortunatus Nwachukwu, representative of the Holy See to the UN in Geneva, has been appointed by Pope Francis to a new key post. Joining us now in Geneva is His Excellency Archbishop Fortunatus Nwachukwu. I extend my warmest greetings to you, Excellency.
Good afternoon, Christian. How are you?
Thank you very much for asking. I'm doing well so far, with a laughing but also a crying eye, so to speak, regarding your departure from Geneva. However, before we go to our topic today, just a quick reminder, Excellency. The Pope has appointed you Nuncio to the UN in Geneva on December 17th, 2021. And now, a few days ago, appointed you Secretary in the new section for First Evangelization and new local churches of the Dicastery for Evangelization. As I said, for us a rather not so good news, but for you a very joyful one. So the Pope has new plans for you, Excellency. Are you then ready to move on?
Well, yeah, Christian. The Pope surprises us, and we are here to serve. We are like plants. Wherever we are planted, we try to put down roots. We try to grow, bear flowers and bear fruits. So I'm like a little dancer. I dance to the music that is played to me. It is true that sometimes when I think I've learned the steps of the dance, they change the music. I have to begin to learn again to dance. So there we go. We are here to serve. And if the church calls, if the Holy Father calls, we are here. We are here to serve. So I thank you. I thank all the people that have made my little less than a year here in Geneva something memorable. Yeah, I'm ready to move on.
Excellency, whoever follows our weekly reports here knows that you are indeed an expert when it comes to the contents of the Bible. You're also a Bible scholar. The connection of your work at the Holy See in Geneva, at the UN, with the messages of the Bible, you have more than once masterfully demonstrated here in our conversations. Perhaps one of the reasons Pope Francis called you back to the headquarters in Rome. What do you think?
Well, I thank you, Christian. I do not know why the Pope appointed me, but I do know I have a great passion for the sacred scriptures, for the Bible. And that passion grew with my studies of the scriptures at the Biblical Institute in Rome and passing through the Hebrew University in Jerusalem. But especially, a major role was played in that by my time at St. Georg in Frankfurt, where I had the great privilege, singular privilege, of being part of my specialization under Professor Norbert Lofink. Norbert Lofink influenced me with his passion, and I imbibed a lot of that passion. So when you speak about my passion for the scriptures, I think a good part of it has to be addressed to Lofink, to whom I remain ever grateful. I was with him last weekend, and he is now 95 years old and still going strong. It was such a wonderful thing being with him. And when he heard of the Pope naming me to the new dicastery, he wrote to me a wonderful, wonderful mail. So, yeah, I thank you for your comment, but I also thank Norbert Lofink and the Germans, who also financed my period of specialization under Norbert Lofink at St. Georgen in Frankfurt.
Archbishop Nwachukwu is now second man in the section formerly in charge of the Congregation for Missions. His boss is Cardinal Luis Tagle of the Philippines. Before the Archbishop leaves for Rome very soon, at the end of April, we will have one or two more opportunities to talk with him in his capacity as representative of the Holy See to the UN in Geneva. Our topic today, the UN Weapons Convention held in Geneva in the middle of the month and attended by Archbishop Nwachukwu. Do such weapons of war conferences, held several times a year, actually change anything? Can artificial intelligence, killer robots, be held accountable for their actions like humans? And do ethics and morality even matter when it comes to weapons of war? The Holy See at the UN Weapons Conference, now here on EWTN TV UN Block. Afternoon. Already since 2014, the states parties to the UN Convention on certain conventional weapons in Geneva have been negotiating a regulation or ban on autonomous, self-contained weapon systems. However, a binding treaty under international law has not yet been reached because the fronts between the states are increasingly hardening. Your Excellency, in the middle of this month, you participated in the UN Weapons Convention in Geneva. Allow me to show you a video clip of a statement made by the Holy See at the UN in Geneva on the very same convention a few years ago.
The respect and promotion of international humanitarian law are increasingly ignored and violated. Just look at what is happening in today's armed conflict. At best, the humanitarian principles have become a mesmerizing litany. The Holy See is alarmed by these developments that can only lead to more violence, misery, and suffering. The Holy See associates itself with the responsible and urgent warning launched recently by the United Nations Secretary General and the President of the International Committee of the Red Cross. The description they make of the continued erosion of and the non-compliance with the rules of international humanitarian law is alarming. The two senior leaders judge the current situation as unacceptable. They see that the world is at a crossroads and that all state and non-state actors have the duty to engage to renew a contract for humanity that should benefit millions of people affected by armed conflict. The Holy See proposes to put in place a group of governmental experts on lethal autonomous weapon systems, another one on the use of explosive weapons in populated areas, and a third group for the revision of the protocol on incendiary weapons. These are not new issues for the CCW. What is happening on the ground in many conflicts is unacceptable.
Well, these words sound like yesterday, don't they? But they were addressed to the United Nations by one of your predecessors, then Archbishop Silvano Tomasi, now Cardinal Tomasi, back in 2015, 8 years ago. And his successor, Archbishop Ivan Jurkovic, and also you, Excellency, talk year after year, so it seems the mouth sore, without that the situation changes. On the contrary, it's getting worse. Do these meetings achieve anything? Are these meetings necessary at all?
Thank you, Christian. I must say they are necessary and they are important because the United Nations provides us the forum where nations come together to discuss, even when they do not agree. We know how difficult it is for even individuals who disagree, how difficult it is for them to come together to discuss. We can magnify that and come to the level of states that have got different interests, different ideologies. So the fact of having them sit together, talk to one another at a forum is already a step into success. But then beyond that, we also have had concrete cases of success. First and foremost, the proposal to create a group of governmental experts was made in 2015, not only by the Holy See, but also by a number of other states. And there were to be 3 groups of governmental experts, one on laws, that is lethal autonomous weapon systems, another one on explosive weapons, the use of explosive weapons in populated areas, also called a WIPA, and another one on incendiary weapons. In the meantime, to show you the progress, the group of governmental experts on laws has been created and is working. There was difficulty in creating the group of governmental experts on explosive weapons. So the government of Ireland decided to invite some willing states to negotiate and come to a political declaration. So that is also progress. Where we have not seen much progress is with regard to incendiary weapons. And let me also mention that at the meetings of the group of governmental experts on lethal autonomous weapons, concrete progress is also being made, especially with regard to understanding what these weapon systems are and understanding what exactly is their purpose. And then there is also the dimension, the ethical dimension that has been introduced by the delegation of the Holy See and supported by a number of other delegations. Yes, progress has been made. Just think of the fact that in 2018, the European Parliament, in one of its resolutions, made reference to the proposal of the Holy See to ban this type of weapons. So, are things getting worse? Well, the situation in the world seems to get more and more precarious, but is progress being made? In these fora, yes, progress is being made. Are they necessary? Yes, they are necessary, because we have to keep talking. That is better than becoming or remaining alienated from one another.
A group of 28 states pleads for an immediate ban on research, development and use of so-called killer robots, which includes drones, robotic vehicles and submarines. These 28 states, among which is Germany, demand their outlawing under international law. They are supported by thousands of scientists and leading AI and robotics experts, more than 100 internationally active NGOs, 21 Nobel Prize winners, the UN Secretary General, as well as the European Parliament. However, the following states reject a ban: the USA, Russia, China, France, the UK, Israel and India. In total, 12 states refuse any form of regulation of killer robots, blocking any decision, as this would require unanimity. Excellency, you have reiterated before the United Nations, and I quote, "It is important to recognize that an autonomous, that is self-sufficient weapon system can never be a morally responsible subject. A machine can carry out instructions and rules, but it is a mistake to say that it can decide or judge." Excellency, it seems that some state officials really believe that machines are or will be able to decide and judge for themselves. Isn't the goal behind this to displace human responsibility, legal and otherwise, and instead to make a machine responsible for everything, which in the end can never be held responsible? What do you think about this?
Well, thank you, Christian. Let me speak from my personal experience and also from the much I have followed of these meetings, either directly or through my collaborators. I want to tell you that the states at these meetings have agreed on a number of things. First is that the guiding principle with regard to these lethal autonomous weapon systems have to be the international humanitarian law. They all agree on that the guiding principle is the international humanitarian law. And then another thing also they agree on, there's a consensus on this, that these weapons are not to be considered as human. They are not to be taken to be the same as human beings. So with these points of consensus agreement, we can then go on to also mention the fact that these states all emphasize the same points of responsibility and accountability. Now, it is there that we have differences, especially among the states that are into developing these weapons, because how this question of responsibility and accountability will be applied to especially the newly developed weapon systems, which have higher levels of engagement and selection and engagement, how to apply responsibility and accountability to them. Yes, we have areas of disagreement, we have areas even of blockage, but there are principles of consensus. As I mentioned to you, the role of international humanitarian law, and then the fact that these weapons are not to be treated as human beings.
And also you said at this year's conference that it is critical to translate ethical and legal concerns into concrete results before it's too late. The UN itself runs its own ethics office that promotes an ethical organizational culture based on the UN's core values of integrity. Isn't it ironic, though, that the same UN has constantly a hard time when it comes to ethics?
Well, Christian, I have to mention that the Ethical Office of the United Nations has to do with internal affairs of the organization, especially with regard to personnel. The United Nations does not come to impose its own ethical principles on the states. The states are there. The states establish themselves, they come together, they negotiate principles guiding their activities. And we are there, the Holy See also, to try to bring in the ethical dimension, or call the attention of states to ethical dimension. Yes, the United Nations, when necessary, does support the ethical dimensions, but these are quite often questions that are negotiated. We have difficulties sometimes when ideological principles are brought in to try to influence ethical considerations. That is why the Holy See is present to bring focus on certain principles that are supposed to be fundamental.
Now I turn to you as a biblical scholar, Excellency. Who should be standard for what ethics are and what they are not?
I have to tell you, Christian, that there are two levels of answers. The first one is answering you as a Christian. The other one is answering you as a human being. As a human being, the yardstick will be the human person. As a Christian, the yardstick, I would go back to the basic book of the Judeo-Christian tradition, and that is the Bible. And with regard to the Bible, I would refer to the book of Genesis, chapter 2, verses 16 and 17. When God put the first man in the Garden of Eden, he gave him the freedom to eat of all the fruits in the garden, except one. And that fruit was the fruit of the knowledge of good and evil. God said to Adam, the day you take that fruit for yourself, you are going to die. What does that mean? God wants to maintain the monopoly over the decision, over the judgment regarding what is good and what is evil. For a Christian, the yardstick is the will of God. And that will of God is either found in the commandments that are written in the sacred book, or in the commandment that God has put into our hearts, into our mind. That commandment, the source of that commandment is called conscience. Now, if the yardstick is God, God then has made us, I'm taking you back again to Genesis chapter 1, verses 26 and 27, in his image and likeness. So he wants us to reflect him. And so in reflecting him, we are going to like what God likes and hate what God hates, or reject what God rejects. The fathers of the church would speak of the principle of perfect friendship. Idem volere, idem nolere. Wanting the same thing, loving the same thing, and rejecting the same thing. So what God wants is what we are to want. And what God rejects, we have to reject. That is the basic principle for us. And what does God want? God wants the good of the human being, the good of creation. So even if we remove Christianity and then focus on the human being, as human beings, every human being wants the good of the human being, the good of the human person. From antiquity, this good is protected through the principle of equity. Do to no one what you would not want done to you. From the time of Hammurabi, even before, and among all peoples, that is in the conscience, preserving the good of the human person. And that is why also, whether from the point of view of Christianity or the point of view of natural law that is in our consciences, the Holy See has always fought for those rights and those principles that are based on that eternal law that God has put in our conscience, on the preservation of human life, the preservation and defense of human dignity, and the preservation and defense of the common good. These are the yardstick, whether we come from the point of view of man as human being or as man as the creation of God, as the image and likeness of God. Simply, for the Christian, the yardstick is God, the will of God. For the non-Christian, universally, the yardstick is the good of the human being, the good of the human person, and common good.
According to the Insight Partners, an industry research provider, the artificial intelligence AI market is growing rapidly. In 2021, defense AI was estimated to be worth about $6.4 billion, with a projected increase to $13.1 billion, double by 2028. And who is investing in AI? NATO and its members, for example. And who are the investors? Exactly, you and I. Linked to this, then, is the arms trade, which Pope Francis recently called the worst plague in the world. And Saint Mother Teresa of Calcutta said, "War is the result of politics, and that's why I don't interfere in it. That's all," she said. Next time on EWTN TV UN blog, again Archbishop Nwachukwu, title Hard to Believe, Trends in Restrictions on Religious Conversions. Thank you so much for watching. God bless.